Welcome to the Podkey summary of Rev Up Your CarPlay app from WWDC 2026. CarPlay is getting a pretty big expansion in iOS 27, and a lot of it comes down to one idea. The car screen is becoming a much more capable place to browse, control, and even watch media when the vehicle allows it. There are also meaningful updates for navigation apps, with more custom interface options, route sharing for vehicle assistance features, and better simulator tools, so developers can actually test all this without borrowing a fleet of cars. And around the edges, Apple is opening up more templates across more app categories, which usually sounds like inside baseball until you realize it means apps can feel more polished and consistent a lot faster. The headline change is that developers can now build full video browsing experiences right on the CarPlay display. So if a car supports the new Video in Car feature, you can select and watch video directly from the dashboard screen instead of treating CarPlay like it only understands audio. What's especially neat here is that Apple isn't making developers rebuild their apps from scratch. If an app already supports AirPlay video streaming from the iPhone, that same support automatically carries over to CarPlay, and the app can show up on the CarPlay home screen without any extra code changes. That lowers the barrier a lot, which usually means these features have a better chance of showing up in real apps instead of living forever in developer session demos. Apple also thought through the very obvious real-world issue here, which is that not every car is going to allow video playback. If the vehicle says video isn't available, CarPlay automatically switches the content to audio only. That means a podcast with a video version or a sports broadcast can keep going without the whole experience breaking the second you're in a driving situation. And for apps that include both the CarPlay video entitlement and the audio entitlement, they'll still appear on the CarPlay home screen, even in cars that don't support video. So developers get visibility, users get continuity, and nobody has to wonder why the app vanished just because the car is being sensible. There's also a new MiniPlayer for the Now Playing template, aimed especially at larger car displays where there's room to keep more context on screen. It shows playback controls in progress, and it appears automatically for any app that reports Now Playing content. That automatic part matters, because it means users should get a more consistent playback experience across apps instead of every developer inventing their own slightly odd version of the same thing. If an app really doesn't want it, developers can turn it off by setting the Now Playing templates allows MiniPlayer property to false. In that case, only an icon appears in the navigation bar, which is a smaller footprint if that fits the app better. Another useful change is the voice control template becoming available to all CarPlay app categories. Before, some of these interface building blocks were limited to narrower use cases. Now audio apps, communication apps, video apps, and others can pull from the same toolbox more freely. The voice control template can also appear as an overlay on top of another template, like the map, so the underlying content stays visible. That's the kind of detail that makes a car interface feel calmer, because you're not constantly jumping away from what you were looking at just to handle one voice interaction. Each overlay can include up to 2 action buttons, plus leading and trailing navigation bar buttons, and Apple is nudging developers to provide shorter text versions so the overlay doesn't get cramped. Browsing screens are getting more expressive too. With the CP Playback Configuration API, thumbnails can now show overlays like badges, live stream indicators, or even sports teams and score information. The same configuration also drives playback progress and playback state, so a thumbnail can reflect whether something is playing or paused, and how far along it is. Developers do have to keep that playback configuration updated whenever the playback state changes. Otherwise, those little visual cues go stale fast. Apple is also improving list interfaces with support for both portrait and landscape images, and card-style elements can include thumbnails, overlays, progress, and custom badge images. Put that together, and CarPlay browsing can start to feel less like a stripped-down file menu and more like an actual media app, just one designed for a car. On the navigation side, iOS 27 adds panel objects that let apps build custom UI sections while keeping the map visible in the main area. Those panels can combine lists, grids, waypoints, and actions, which gives navigation developers more room to present useful choices without blowing up the standard flow people already know. There's also a button configuration area at the bottom of a panel for things like go or end, so apps get more precise control over map-adjacent actions. The bigger functional upgrade is route sharing with vehicle assistance systems. A CarPlay navigation app can send an array of geographic route segments to the vehicle, which then enables features like automatic lane changes or EV-focused charging stop suggestions. Apple is being pretty clear about control here. The driver has to explicitly approve route sharing for each vehicle, and apps can also disable sharing on a trip-by-trip basis if a route isn't eligible. So the convenience is there, but it's not being treated like a silent background permission. A lot of these features would be hard to ship confidently if testing still depended on having the right car parked outside. Apple's updating CarPlay Simulator, which is now available through Device Hub and in the additional tools for Xcode package. Developers can test across multiple screen sizes and vehicle configurations, including cars that support video. And for navigation apps, the simulator includes route sharing diagnostics, so developers can check things like waypoint proposals and energy consumption estimates without needing a physical vehicle to validate the basics. That's not flashy, but it's the kind of tooling that usually determines whether a platform feature becomes common or stays half-finished. Taken together, these updates make CarPlay feel less like a narrow companion screen and more like a real app platform with room for media, navigation, and shared interface patterns to grow up a bit. Video apps get a straightforward path in. Audio apps get better continuity. Navigation apps get deeper hooks into the vehicle. And developers get more reusable templates across categories. It's still very Apple in the sense that the car decides what's allowed. The driver has to approve the sensitive stuff, and the system tries hard to keep the experience tidy. But within those guardrails, there's clearly a lot more flexibility now than there used to be. So if you use CarPlay, the short version is that it's getting smarter about media and more capable for navigation without asking users to learn a whole new interface. And if you build CarPlay apps, iOS 27 looks like one of those releases where the screen in the dashboard suddenly feels like a much bigger deal. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.